The main construction vessels are going to be anchor handlers and big anchor handlers and big subsea vessels. And there is a relatively limited supply of these vessels. The subsea vessels in particular are very busy. The anchor handlers have got pretty good utilization and recovering utilization. But once we start looking at the volumes required in a floating wind farm of the station keeping systems, things that would be similar to the oil and gas industry, something to hold station, an anchor point of some variety, a mooring line of some variety, but lots of them. And that needs lots of repetitive activity of the anchor handling and subsea work. The inter-array cables, which are these dynamic flexible cables to connect each of the turbines effectively into the substation to transport the power. These are all the core technologies of floating wind, and that really requires anchor handlers and subsea vessels, but it requires the biggest of them. And our forecasts of that, when you look at the forecasts of the activity required, coupled with that of the oil and gas activity, is we are going to start to see shortages in the vessel supply, irrespective of the scenario of floating wind development, because there are different technologies that can be deployed. Shortages starting towards the end of this decade. And to fill those shortages, that means vessels need to be built to fill that gap. That takes time to build those vessels. As shipyards are beginning to either getting busy at the moment, or they've lost the skills to build these big anchor handlers, because no big anchor handlers have been built for quite some time. The equipment that feeds them, the winches, the handling systems, all of those haven't been built at that scale. They've been built for smaller systems for some time. So all of that stuff needs to be built up at scale again, and that takes time, and that takes the confidence for a ship owner to invest. Now, we're seeing ship owners invest in subsea vessels because the general subsea vessel segment is relatively buoyant and they can see pretty good utilization in that. Can't really see the same story coming out from the anchor handling market, because in the floating wind side, these vessels may only be used for half a year, let's say, in a worst case per year, because of weather windows. They might, in a good year, there might be up to 9 months or something like that, but they're not going to be used 365. And vessel owners need that utilization, and that needs, again, to bring in the developers, needs to bring in the agencies, and that's where you need the volume of not just one project, but you need multiple projects where people know the vessel can go from project to project. But quite simply, to build what has been auctioned, what is being discussed as offtakes and revenue protection and grid connections, means we are short of vessels, and we're going to be short of the crews for those vessels.